Okay, now we're gonna caulk our pilot chute. When you land, all of this is excess. This is the slack that has been let go of. So what you wanna do is you wanna make sure this is pinched up like an accordion. So you're gonna deal with anything on your deployment bag that needs to be dealt with right now. So you look at your rubber bands, make sure that you have good rubber bands so that way you don't have to get one and replace one in the middle of closing. And unfold your bag and make sure it's facing the canopy, okay? So this is exactly how it should look. Main attachment point to the bridle, bag facing the canopy. Now you're gonna scoot it as close as you can, and you can step on the corner of the bag, and I want you to see what happens with the bridle as I caulk the pilot chute. I'm gonna lift up the bridle, get rid of any twist that you have. If you have a lot of twist, it's a sign that your kill line is probably a little bit too long. Ask a local rigger on the drop zone or a packer to help you fix that if you find you have a lot of twist in your pilot chute bridle. So right now it's not cocked, it's limp. It's not gonna do anything, it's not catching any air when I deploy it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find my pud or my hacky, whatever you have that you grab onto, and I'm gonna pretend like I'm shooting a bow, I guess. I'm gonna put the bridle behind my head, and now I'm taking tension and pulling on my line. Okay, so now I have as much tension, I can't pull any more slack. Now, if I test this out, it's actually gonna catch air. Okay, should make that sound. And when we look down here, look at how much slack we just pulled out of there, okay? One more thing you can check is most kill lines have a color that you can barely see mine, it's been worn out. It can be blue or green. That'll be in the window if it's cocked. Not all of them have it, or like mine, it's hard to see. So don't rely on the color, rely more on whether or not your pilot chute, when you test it, that it actually catches air. All right, so this is the point where we're gonna try to get any air that our canopy has left over in it to make it fit in our deployment bag. So when I start this process, I put my knees on my label and I have my grommets from my slider right here, okay? My knees are preventing my slider from going back towards my lines. And then you can see if you look behind me, the way my feet are, I'm straddling the lines. I'm making sure I don't put my feet on these at all, okay? So foot on either side of my butt. Now, the best way to get out air, start at your knees, push forward up the middle of the canopy, okay? And you wanna work from your knees out. The cameraman just tripped. All right, so you wanna focus on one side of this at a time. So you've got, this is all fabric. There's no lines in here. All of your lines are in the center of your pack job. This is where you wanna be careful moving fabric around here. Here, this is just fabric, okay? We can manhandle this a little bit. Don't be scared to manhandle this part of your canopy. So what I like to do is I like to take my forearm to brace the air from coming back in, and now I can use the other hand to get rid of the air in this, okay? And I can, like I said, you can manhandle it. You can squeeze it a little bit, get the air out, okay? Same thing on the other side. I'm gonna brace with my forearm, and I'm gonna manhandle this fabric a little bit. And those of you who have really big canopies, there's gonna be a lot of fabric out here, okay? Don't be afraid to really kind of crunch it in, do whatever you have to do. You might have to come back to your knees, work the fabric out, and get that as deflated as possible, okay? It's almost like they're meant to hold air. All right, so now you have to determine your folds based on the size of your deployment bag. So if I look at my deployment bag, one fold is gonna be here, one fold is gonna be here. That means I have to make my canopy approximately this wide in order to make it fit in the bag, okay? At this point, a lot of people have different methods. You'll see people laying on their stomachs, shoving fabric underneath them. I don't recommend doing that because I want to be sure that I'm not messing with any of those lines that I took care to put in the middle. So what I do is I take this imaginary line I'm gonna take all of the layers of fabric, right? I have them all the way from the ground. I literally imagine making this fold right here. I lift up, I push under, and I make that fold, okay? It's a little wide now, we can decrease it in a second. Same thing on the other side. So I'm picturing my fold here. Get rid of some of this air, because it just wants to keep inflating. So I'm grabbing the fabric, lifting up, folding it all under, just like that, okay? So essentially I've folded the right in halves underneath the center of the canopy, okay? I still have this center line right here, and I want that to be more or less in the center of my deployment bag, okay? As you can see, we still have a little bit more to go because we're not quite as narrow as we want to be. So at this point, you'll see a lot of people, again, shoving their hands trying to get fabric under. The best way to control this, take that tail that you wrapped the whole canopy in, you can literally pinch it up so you're not grabbing any other layers, meet it together on the other side, like so. Now, this is as narrow as I want my folds to be, okay? What I'm doing is I'm holding the whole canopy by the tail on the other side, and you can kind of church up this edge right here, and on the other side, church that up, get rid of the last bit of air, okay? And now you can see, if I measure it with my deployment bag, I'm like perfectly fine to fit that right in the middle, okay? Now we have to fold it, okay? So from here, we wanna picture folding the canopy in half. And luckily, most canopies have this reinforcement tape that's about halfway. I fold it just a little bit above that reinforcement tape. I'm gonna change my body position though. I'm gonna rotate away so I'm off the canopy. I place the knee here so my grommets still can't go in that direction, so I'm keeping my slider and the tension on my lines. And then in the back, I'm holding the canopy with one hand. That leaves my other hand free to kind of hi-yaw that and make it where I want to fold it, fold the entire thing in half, okay? And this is where it starts to look a little scary. But don't worry, we have everything. All of our lines haven't moved, our slider hasn't moved. Those are the most important parts. I can transfer hands here, and this is the point where you can get your first fold of the canopy in the bag. So just think about lifting and putting the bag on the canopy like this, okay? Now, some people look at this and go, oh my gosh, there's so much fabric, this is so scary, it looks so messy. But you have your center line here, which is your center attachment point on the top of your canopy. We want this that's attached to the bridle to be right where the bridle comes out here. So picture taking that and putting it right at the bottom, okay? So now it's in my deployment bag and I can actually like hold it in place. Now hopefully you can see that's an even half and that's an even half. And we still have our seam in the middle, that's the middle of our canopy, and it's in the middle of our deployment bag. So everything's super symmetrical still, okay? At this point, what I do is I push everything I can towards the bottom of the bag. And this is where I really like to see that I have my center seam here, my center seam here, everything is still even Steven, okay? And now this is where people start to freak out. This here is all fabric, empty fabric. There's no line attachment points. All the line attachment points are closer in towards this fold. So really this, you can do what you need to do to get the air out of that, okay? I can alternate hands, squish that up, get rid of all of the air, okay? And you can see I'm using my pressure of my body weight to hold all the fabric in. Now, take all of that extra fabric, as much as you can ball up in your hand. Imagine we're making a fold, like so, but as we fold, we're putting it into the bag. So, fold, okay? So all of that fabric is going to the corner of your bag, like so. And if you look, center seam, dead center of the bag, still in line with the other seam. We're super symmetrical here, okay? We just have to do the same thing with this stuff over here. Get the air out. Like I said, with bigger canopies, you might literally be holding onto this and smushing it with your whole arm, trying to get the fabric contained. Now we also picture, I'm making a fold here, okay? So I'm not just cramming it like this, I'm actually thinking about putting this in the very bottom corner of the bag. Okay, so, all right, so we have another third of our canopy is in the bag now. And again, everything is super symmetrical. Now you want to take that fold that you just made, and I change my body position again. I'm putting downward pressure so no air reinflates the canopy, and I'm coming to this side. The next thing you want to think about is this label facing up out of the middle of your deployment bag, okay? You also, this is the last moment where if you have any part of your line that is kind of poking out, this is your last chance to kind of fix it. Pull it taut. Now I'm gonna lift the whole bag. See how I'm pulling towards me? I'm keeping tension on my lines, and I can set it down like this. Now remember, I said I want that label coming out of the very middle of my bag, so I don't want to turn it downwards like this. I want it facing up towards me. And how I do that is I literally just push it straight down like so. Okay? Now, you can kind of church up those extra little bits on the side. But when I look down into my bag, I've got a third of the canopy folded on this side and a third of the canopy folded on that side, and then the last third is down in the middle, okay? This label is your protection on your lines. You'll hear something called line burn, and that's when the friction of the lines coming out of the bag can actually heat up and burn your canopy fabric. So without moving the grommets, if you have any lines that are touching canopy fabric, you can actually use that label as a way to protect your canopy fabric from getting line burn. Another thing, if you own the canopy and you want to protect the life of your canopy, less patches, less repairs, this is a small thing you can do to protect your canopy. Again, you're not pulling the grommets out, you're just using the label of the tail to cover those lines and protect from line burn.